what we have seen is the parents and the grandparents that stop us in the grocery stores, or the ones that come right up after we presented the idea, and they're crying and they say, I never thought my kid would have a shot at going to college. And it's like, it's not even on their radar. And I guess I kind of knew it would be great. I didn't realize how much of an impact it could possibly have. So the next step is to do our Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society is huge at Coffeyville, and it's a mentoring program for junior high students. So the idea is to stay in touch with those 6th graders for the next 6 years. And then what we're working on right now is an early testing program where we would go in sophomore level of high school, test those students, and then sit down one-on-one with teachers and parents and students and say, this is where you're at, this is where you need to be, this is what you need to take, and this is what we'll do to help you get there. There's a lot of other little pieces. We don't have a lot of students that are dually enrolled as seniors in high school, and I think it's a funding issue. So I'd like to work on some scholarship type opportunities there. We do have 2 technical campuses in Coffeyville. One is in Coffeyville and one's in Columbus, which is about an hour away. And so we do a lot of the high school enrollment in our tech programs, and I think we're going to see some more growth in that with some new initiatives. But I think that's kind of a start as to who I am. So I guess, any questions? Oh, I'm an eternal optimist too. Doesn't matter how bad it gets, and if you know anything about Kansas and our funding, it's gotten kind of bad. But so in addition to being an optimist, I also think that you have to model the behavior you want from employees. And so I'm usually the last one to leave the campus, and I'm always available by phone. It doesn't matter if it's the weekend or the evenings. And I've had employees make comments like that. I had an employee one time tell me in the first year, you shouldn't start that precedence. And I'm thinking, what? I got a lot to do. So, and I'm a happy person. I did take over student conduct in the last year, and let me tell you how challenging that is for a person like me. And I don't like to tell a student that they have, hit the final straw and now we have to separate. And because of that, I feel like there needs to be a lot more emphasis on care teams and behavior intervention threat teams and things like that, so that we can prevent those kids from getting into those conduct type issues. I don't think you can save them all. I'm not that naive, but I do think that there are things we can do to help, both in training our employees and in helping set some parameters for students early on that will help with that. An eye-opener for me was a parent that came in. We didn't remove the student from the institution. He went home. He kind of he initiated it, but he ended up on the raw end of the deal. And the dad came in before he left with his son, and he said, I just want to talk to you. And he started asking me questions like, did you know about the car wreck? Did you know about the girlfriend? Did you know about this? And the whole time I'm just thinking, if we had known a month ago, this would not be happening today. And so those are kind of, between the K-12 collaboration and the care teams, those are some big passions of mine in terms of student services. I've got a lot of experience in recruiting and advising and retention too, so. Questions? Come on.
Yes, I have two, so I will ask one and then wait and say the other one. First one is, what do you see as your role, what is your view of the role of counseling on a community college campus?
Me personally as counseling?
Well, the counseling function on campus.
Not student conduct. I think statistically right now they say 25% of Americans have a mental health, I don't know if it's a diagnosis or that, and I think that the demographic that community colleges see, it's probably a little bit higher. I can tell you every time they start talking about making cuts, I tell them they can't have my counselor because I am not trained in that area. Not very many people are, and I don't want to send a student who needs some help like that to someone who can't make the proper, I guess, plan and action for that student, because we can make it a whole lot worse really fast. In where I'm at now, both places had an on-site counselor, and then we also work very closely with the local mental health facilities. I can tell you, this spring we were approached by the mental health organization in Coffeyville to, they received a grant to do some training, and now you can have a CPR card, now you can have a mental health first aid card, and it's 12 hours of training, and they wanted to know if we'd be interested, and I'm like, most definitely. So on August 3rd, I think, all of my student life managers who live in housing, all of my student conduct people, all of my behavior intervention threat care team people, and any faculty who want to join us can come and get free training and be certified in mental health first aid. And it's real similar to the first responder type card. It's not a diagnostic type deal. It's a, this looks kind of familiar. I think we need to move into another phase of helping you out kind of student. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Sure.
Okay.
My other question then is, we have over 400 returning veterans on campus, on this campus. What services do you see, or how would you want to approach the issue of the returning veteran?
I think that it's similar to one of the things that we're looking at doing in terms of instead of classifying you as an incoming freshman, period. You start to look at students in terms of cohort groups, and I think the veterans would be their own cohort group based on need, because every group has a different set of needs. So, for example, and I keep bringing this up, but you don't have any students that enroll on the first day of classes, do you? Those are considered high-risk students. I know you don't. Those students, the students who are stop-out students and they return later to classes, the flat-out non-traditional student that's never been to school and is coming back, they all have different needs. And so we can't offer the same services to everyone. We have to start saying, you know, if you're a non-traditional student, you know, here's some extra things. Because what we found with non-traditional students is a lot of them are just afraid of the processes. And if they can connect with one person who can help them through the whole process, it gets a lot easier for those students. And I think that in terms of veterans, they're going to have their own challenges. Sometimes if they're still active duty, they're going to need a program that can be flexible and maybe an online finish kind of situation. I think your mental health type situations might be maybe at the forefront of some of the issues of returning veterans. I think you have to look at each group, and the other thing I think you need to do is ask the students, you know, what are your needs, or what scares you about this, or why are you not enrolling in more, you know, what do you find are the challenges? And I think that that group of students can help drive some of the planning and services that can be provided to help make sure that they're successful.
Thank you.
We have to wait for the mic.
Hello.
Hi.
In addition to a number of other things, including my job out here, I serve on the advising, the oversight board for advising. And so just as a quick background, advising out here is a little bifurcated. You know, most incoming students will see someone in the advising center before they're actually, you know, sent down to see their academic advisor to continue. And there's been some issues with that. So my question for you is, what do you, I mean, what's your preference, or what do you see as a, you know, if you could pick your perfect advising system, although none of them are perfect, I know, but if you could,
That's right.
Can you see from an advising standpoint? I'd just like to have your ideas.
Okay. I think it depends on the school. In Nebraska, what worked really well is the faculty advised. Because they were really, if you came in ag production, you came in horticulture, you came in ag business. We didn't tend to have very many general advised students. They were all in different programs out there because it was a highly technical type of school. In that situation, faculty did the advising. It worked great. Where I'm at now, there's basically two levels of faculty. We have what I would consider maybe pure faculty, so the ones that are only teaching classes. Then you've got a level of faculty who are over programs like theater and choral music, that kind of thing. And those, that's another level of faculty. So where I'm at now, we've had some roadblocks to having all of the faculty advise, mainly in IT. But I don't think it's an unwillingness. I think it's an IT issue and maybe some training and some make it easier kind of thing. The other thing I think we have a problem with is that advising is not class sign up. It's not signing up for classes. It's a whole lot more holistic maybe than just signing a student up for class, and we have a cultural problem where I'm at that it's just class sign up. So we're working on that. I've sent some of my advisors to NACADA so that they can learn and help develop a new advising module. What we have now is a dual advising module. And it's sort of moving us in the direction of that holistic kind of thing. We have a general advisor set up where I've got a handful of people who do general advising. And they're there 12 months out of the year, so whenever the student comes in, they're helped right away. Those are considered secondary advisors. We also have one athletic advisor that kind of helps with all the athletics. She's supposed to just check advising schedules, not actually do advising. But again, she's there 12 months out of the year, so if the coach happens to be gone and the student comes in, she can help them. Then the primary advisor is based on one of two things. If they're on a scholarship, their primary advisor is going to be that scholarship person. So the football coach, the theater director, the livestock judging coach, that kind of thing. Or if they're not on one of those types of scholarships, they are assigned based on their major. Their biology major, they go to a biology instructor, so the faculty are the primary advisors. It's been challenging. I kind of believe that lack of training is the root of all evil, and so I'm a big proponent of training, and I think that we need to do a lot more of that. I could tell you one thing that happened right in front of me. I had a student walk up to a faculty member and say, "Hey, you're my advisor, when can I meet with you?" And he said, "Oh, I don't do the advising very well, you need to go see so-and-so." And I just stepped in and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." And I asked the student, I said, "What's your major?" And she said, "Well, I'm an English major." And he's an English instructor. And I said, "What she wants from you is only the types of elective classes that you recommend, maybe the schools that are best for English majors." He's like, "Oh, I can do that." So I thought, and so all of a sudden it clicked with him that it wasn't difficult, the advising thing that we were asking them to do. And so I went back and told my advising director, I said, "You need to go one by one to every office and sit down and give them examples and tell them how to do this." And so everything kind of goes back to communication and the multiple ways that we communicate. But I haven't found the golden way to recruit or to advise, and I feel like it's going to be specific to the institution. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Judy. Hi, I'm Brenda Little. I'm on the Board of Trustees.
Great.
And so, of course, your dissertation is very interesting to me. So I'd like to ask you one question about that, and then after that, ask you another question about your passion for retention. But first, in your dissertation about developing a relationship with the Board of Trustees, can you think of one real pearl of wisdom that came out of that is stuck in your brain all this time that you plan to use in the future?
I think the thing that was really very dominant, there were two things. Communication was very key. And it's interesting because I've gone through a couple of different leadership models, one which was, here's your report and that's all we're going to talk about, and one that was, here's everything. And the here's everything one tends to work well with the board we have now, but boards change, and so it's not unlike hiring a new employee or working in a new environment. Everyone has different needs, and so what I've understood in my dissertation is that the presidents need to get to know each board member individually and don't treat them all the same. I mean, they all require different things. Maybe one would like an email, one would like a personal visit, that kind of thing, and really mix that up. The leadership style of the president has come up as a pretty dominant factor in the success of a president. Your servant leaders tend to do well. Transformational leaders do okay for a while, depending on your boards. And the ones that believe that the president is the person in charge don't do well at all. So I think, yeah, I know, I'm kind of talking to the choir, aren't I? It's almost like there isn't it's a team leadership approach, and it has to be looked at that way. That, everyone is there to lead the institution, and so they have to work as a team, and it can't be me versus them kind of thing. And so I may not be able to find a definitive answer, and that's why I have 2 more chapters still to write. But.
And my other question, you said one of your passions is retention, and that's really interesting to me. So can you tell me if you have any a formula that has really worked for you in retention, and times that you have really felt you've been successful in retention, and that's lit your flame of passion for that?
Okay. I think my passion for retention comes because I started in recruiting. And they'll tell you in recruiting that for every 1 student we retain, that's 3 we don't have to go out and find. And so it's a little less work if we can keep the student. The other thing too, and I can tell you my background in recruiting, when I first started, I used to always go to those career planning fairs and I used to think, ooh, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna have the most cards and they're all the enemy and I've gotta get all these students in here. You learn really quickly that it's not that way at all. It is much more of a, if a student comes up to me and says, I wanna go into electric lineman and we don't have that, I could probably talk them into coming to this school, but it's not going to end well and that student is not going to stay. And so it becomes much more of a collaborative effort between all of the institutions to find the best fit for that student, because that's kind of the start of retention. One of the things that's come up that's new that we've been studying in the class I'm in is talking about how universities can vet students a little bit better than community colleges, starting with your common ACT, your common grade point average, that kind of thing. And they're not talking about going to a system where you say the student has to write an essay and that kind of thing. But I think if we do more upfront work with students and we start to look at, and again, instead of treating them as the freshman class of 2012, and we start to say, we've got this set of students that's going to need special treatment and this set of students is going to be just different levels of care. I also think that the community college students, a large percentage of them, we can't treat them like they're university students. We can't say, well, you just didn't show up to class, so therefore you didn't show up to class. They come in with different needs. And so that's one of the keys to retention. In terms of programs that have worked, our Student Success Center at our campus is run through Student Services. We have found that, a variety of things. We work with the coaches and the activity sponsors to put in specialized tutoring specific to those groups, keep them together, bring them in and work on them. We have provided a lot of programming outside of the classroom. It goes to that student development theory where they're going to learn wherever they're at. And my departments are really annoyed with me right now because I keep saying, you need to start looking at, we need to be putting in some learning outcomes in financial aid, in advising, in everything that we do. Last fall, the Student Success Center would send me numbers. We had 40 kids in tonight, and I said, so what? So what that you had 40 kids in? I don't care how many kids you have in there. What I want to know is, if you looked at the kids that come to the Student Success Center, this percentage amount of time, are they the ones that are graduating versus the ones that are not using that resource? And so you start to look at those numbers, and then if they're not showing up or not improving, then you need to go back and look at how you're going to revamp it, and all of that contributes to retention. It's not about numbers, it's about completion.
Down the road.
All right.
So you hooked me with servant leadership and transformational leadership. Great pull-in for me. I mentioned before that I oversee service learning, and I would like to know your experience with service learning and how you could see student services working with academics on a program such as that.
Okay. We don't have a formal servant learning format, although we've talked about it at Coffeyville. And one of the reasons we've talked about it is because our groups do a lot of community service type projects. And again, it goes back to why can you not link that to a learning outcome? Everything from, we have football teams that set up all the luminarias for Relay for Life and help out with that huge event in our town. We have students that go and read every quarter for Reading is Fundamental at the grade schools. We have groups that do programming and things like that in nursing homes and hospital type setting, things like that. My own belief in terms of, I guess, servant leadership and stuff, again, it comes from the top. If I'm not involved in the community and I'm not giving back in some way in the community, then I don't know how I can expect anyone else to do that. When I was in Dean of Marketing and until last year when I hired a new marketing director, I was in Rotary. Very much enjoyed Rotary, was heavily involved in a couple of their projects, a dictionary project and a big fundraiser that would benefit a variety of different organizations. It was a big Mardi Gras celebration in the town. For the last 5 years, I have been the director of a program called the Junior Advisory Council. It's a group of high school students who work under the Coffeyville Area Community Foundation. The foundation, when I took over initially, what they do is they give this group of high school students $5,000 and say, you're going to be the grant givers of $5,000 to youth programs in the community, but you have to evaluate the grants. So it's great for these high school students, because how often do you get to be on that side of the house? Plus, it's kind of like Ty Pennington's job, you know, you get to give away money, it's great. But right off the bat, the high school students said, it's not enough to just hand out a check, can we do something else? So we started handing out checks and saying, what else can we do for you? Yeah, we're going to give Reading is Fundamental $1,000, but can we come read? Can we come help hand out books? We're going to give Shop with a Cop, you know, whatever, thousands of dollars, but can we do something? And they said, yeah, come and rap. And I mean, half the high school students I work with walk away from that event crying, because it's just a crazy emotional day. But you know, they do a lot of that. They've helped raise money for a skate park. We're putting on our second youth triathlon the 1st of August, promoting lots of health and wellness type agendas and things like that. So I also find that people sometimes just need an idea on how they can give back, be it through Rotary and through a couple of the other organizations I'm involved in. I get asked a lot for help, and I'm out of time, unfortunately. And so Downtown Coffeyville tends to be one of the groups that hits me up all the time. And I'm like, guys, I can't do it. I'm in school right now. I just can't do it. And I'm like, but what do you need? So I kind of tend to be an ex officio helper for them. I, you know, design little things for them and whatever. But I have a really good event coordinator that I work with who was looking for some way to give back. And I said, I know where you can give back. Let me introduce you to these guys. And so I'll start to set up employees of the college with groups around the community. And I feel like that's very important. We have community in our name. We need to be heavily involved in the community. So, and I think the students benefit and learn a great deal when they are involved in those kinds of community service projects. So, I can't think of what else I've talked about. Can I consult my notes? Go ahead.
Okay. There are a handful of academic support programs currently reporting to the Dean of Business, Agriculture, and Computer Technology. The organizational audit strongly suggests that these programs be realigned under the Student Services Division, though some of us wish to remain under the Instructional Division. If you're selected for the Vice President of Student Services, what will be your stance on this realignment? Would you support these programs remaining under instruction? Or how would you integrate academic support programs into student services while maintaining the strong faculty and instructional division support essential for these programs?
Can you tell me what the programs, is it like a Student Success Center?
That's one of the programs, Student Success Center, testing, placement testing.
Those are under
TRIO
academics
programs,
now?
yes.
Okay.
Disability support as well.
Okay. I'm not going to pick sides because I don't think there should be sides. Again, it goes back to kind of the K-12 collaboration thing. I think that my new best friend should be the Vice President for Academics, that it's our job to work together. It's those students. We both have the same goal in mind for those students, and that is success, whether it's regardless of who's overseeing that project. I can give you an example of something that happened this spring. I was getting, and forgive me if I've said this already in this group, I have everything in terms of enrollment management under student services with the exception of our business office. And then our IT department at the time is under our VP for Learning, which would be your academic officer. I got lots and lots of complaints from registrar and financial aid and advising about systems that weren't working. And then I must be easy to talk to because the business office would come and complain to me about other programs. I said, whoa, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have one big meeting. So we get them all in the same room. You would think it wouldn't have worked very well, but it worked exceptionally well. And as we worked around the room and they would bring up their complaints and the whole goal, I sent out a little email and said, here's what you need to do to prepare for this meeting. This is what I want you to come with, and this is our goal for the meeting. And it's going to be an hour and a half long, and I'm not going to keep you any longer. And I apologize for it being 90 minutes because I think that's a long meeting, but we've got a lot to do. As we go around the room, people would say, well, this isn't working, blah, blah, blah. And the business office would say, I know how I can help you make that work. And it's like, oh, okay, so problem solved right there. We didn't even have to move forward. For some reason, just getting groups together like that can solve problems faster than, thinking that you have to build something huge and new and that kind of thing. And so we came up with a good list. We probably solved half a dozen problems that day. And that group, regardless of who they were under and who they worked for, decided that they were all student services and that we're going to meet quarterly, if not more, and the lines of communication absolutely opened up after that, and we've had great success in problem solving and helping each other out. And I think some of the, I don't know if it was animosity or just, if they would quit sending us students from the business office, and if the financial aid department doesn't quit sending these students over to the business office unprepared, some of that has stopped. Because now they just call and say, hey, how come you sent this student back? And let's take care of this problem right now. So I guess my stance is not to take sides. I think whatever's best for the students, you do. And I think that if student services can contribute to programs underneath academics, then we do it, regardless of who's in charge of that.
Thank you for sharing your passion about care teams and behavior intervention teams. I have to admit that I am nosy. So I went looking at your student handbook at Coffeyville.
The one I'm rewriting right now.
I hope.
Yes. It is entirely changing.
The hair on the back of my neck went, the mandatory UA thing, I kind of was, oh my gosh. And how do you define reasonable suspicion?
I'd like to clarify that I inherited that book.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I mean, care teams and behavior intervention teams are really important to me. So it's not a gotcha kind of thing. I really want to know, it's important. And it's labeled direct threat assessment team, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I see you are a member of that. And counseling, student life director, and then there's a floater in there somewhere. So I would assume is, your security people or police or whatever.
We don't
whoever
have
needs
security.
to be there. Right, yeah.
That's me at midnight.
Good, that's really good. Oh, I'm sorry, no, really.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for, regardless of who you are on this campus, that you, if you get paid 6 digits or 6 numbers or 2 numbers or 4 numbers, whatever the case is, that you pick it up because there's no such thing as it ain't my job. So anyway.
It's funny how it dissolves a situation when you show up in a suit at 11 o'clock at night too.
I would
They
imagine.
were like, oh! They tell me that I'm the principal. The principal has shown up. I'm like, get to your room.
My mom wants to know how I like my new superintendent.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Mommy's not a superintendent. Anyway, so you really are, this wasn't your kind of baby. You inherited the student handbook kind of thing. Yes, I thought it was really interesting, especially, you can't demonstrate unless you give 3 weeks advance notice for your demonstration, and it just is really interesting. Okay, all right, that
and I can
answers
tell
that
you
question.
too that our student conduct system is incredibly punitive, and it was, and that was one of the reasons I had a really hard fall. And between that and the fact that the student handbook really hamstrung me for the year, I mean, it just, because you have to follow your policies until they're changed, and it was a mess.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have 2 pages of what to do with UAs. So,
Yes.
And how to walk them here and there and where.
I had to introduce our campus to a preponderance of evidence. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. Well,
it's been an interesting
yeah,
year.
okay. Well, that answers that question, then I'll shut my mouth. Thank you.
And ironically, it has only taken me about 6 months to get everyone on board. And I will tell you, the first time I brought up Title IX, everybody said, equity in athletics. I said, yeah, this much of equity in athletics. And the last, dozen lawsuits, I mean, it's been years since they've had an equity in athletics lawsuit. It's all been on the other thing. So,
Okay.
And actually, I just finished Title IX investigator training about a month ago. So I'm officially trained investigator. They didn't give us a badge. I was a little disappointed, but yes, please don't look at the handbook. It is a mess, and it is in my bag in the car because it's being rewritten right
Well,
now.
I'm sorry.
No.
All right.
And I have promised to leave them better than when I inherited them. I guess I should clarify that too. You have to talk to people who've known me for a while. I'm not sure if Ty and I ever talked about this, but since I graduated from Colorado State, I've wanted to live in Wyoming, and people who know me for a long time have known that. I looked at jobs in journalism in northern Wyoming for a few years, and then of course I got the phone call from Don Woodburn and ended up in Nebraska. And so I wasn't looking for a job. I've got support from Coffeyville to make some great changes there, and I think that I've made an impact enough that I've empowered people in their positions that even if I do leave, that they can still make some really great changes that will impact students. But when this position came across my desk, I was like, oh, I've been waiting for this for 8 years. So, and you know, lots of people who've known me for a long time know that, and actually I must have made comments in Coffeyville about it, because not an hour after that came out publicly, the head track coach came flying in my office and threw it on my desk and said, did you apply for this? And I was like, why would you think that? He said, because you're always talking about moving to Wyoming. I was like, wow, really, with you? Okay. Yes, but please don't tell anyone. So I think that Coffeyville has a lot to offer. I think they've got a lot of challenges like any other institution, and I think that they're well on their way to making some great changes, and the student handbook is going to be one of them. So, other questions? I think one of the questions that came up in the first interview was, you kind of alluded to that with the faculty. You know, how do you get a campus to come together and to unify maybe? In Coffeyville, they were, well, actually in both institutions, pretty siloed, not so much in Nebraska, but when I was in Nebraska, we also did student life out of the admissions office. It was crazy. And student government came out of there. And so one of the things that we did there is our student government had representatives from every group on campus. And so we went back and said, we'll give you a certain amount of budget money, and every month you need to come up with an activity that you're going to offer to the entire campus. It worked out really well, because when it was basketball teams month, they had a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, so they got to introduce their sport to the entire campus. When it was the ag production department's time, they had a little mini rodeo type deal and nearly wrecked the recruiting golf cart. When it was horticulture's time, they planted trees and did community service type things. And so it really brought the campuses together. It introduced everyone's programs and stuff to each other, and it worked out really well that way. In Coffeyville, again, theater always did their thing, choir did their thing, athletics did their deal. They didn't come together very often, and so I started in May, and that first November was the first time we hosted a Red Raven holiday. We're Red Ravens in Coffeyville. What we did is we offered up an incentive, a financial incentive, to whatever group or team had the best decorated area on campus. We asked them to start decorating at 10 a.m., lights on at 5. It was a holiday celebration kind of thing, and we just kind of kicked it out there to see what would happen. Huge response. We had face painting from cheer, we had living nativity scene from ag, theater department put on a program. Yeah, the living nativity scene was fun. We had, baseball did a little wiffle ball thing. Native American cooked out s'mores. We did all kinds of stuff, all in this one little area. Invited the public to come in. We had 500 the first year. We've run close to 1,000 every year after that. We've added live reindeer, added horse and carriage rides. I mean, even the cafeteria got involved, and they do cookie decorating for all the little kids. So it's a huge community service function because it's free to the community. But it brought everyone together, and we crank the music, and everybody, decorates and has a good time and gets to see what other groups do and that kind of thing. So that has helped bring groups together. I like to, kind of like the student services meeting, bring groups together and talk to them. I try and go to lunch at least once a week in the cafeteria, because there's a group of faculty and staff that meet down there, and just informally sit down and talk about what's going on, and is there anything student services can do to help, and that kind of thing. I also like to do rounds. A lot of my family's in the medical field, so I call them rounds, just like a doctor. Take a little notepad, walk around campus. Can get more done in an hour walking around campus than I can sitting in my office all day. Try and just run into people. Hey, how's it going? Anything I should know about. Oftentimes I'll bring back a list for my marketing people. Hey, here's some stories you need to check out. And I don't limit it just to student services in the areas that I'm in charge of. I walk through the faculty offices and stick my head in and, hey, how's it going? One of the things that happened a couple years ago, the science faculty asked if we could do an Earth Day celebration. You bet we can do an Earth Day celebration. It was a huge celebration, and after that, you heard them say, don't ever tell Jill an idea if you don't want it to happen. So they don't close their door when I walk around, but I also, oftentimes you'll have people on staff like our women's housing director that maybe don't get out and go in some of the areas where faculty and staff are. So I try and drag them with me, you know, hey, come give me an hour of your time. I'm going to introduce you. It's a nice icebreaker when I walk in the faculty offices. And so it gets, again, people kind of cross-pollinated in terms of that, getting us to start thinking about, you know, it's Coffeyville as a whole, or it's LCCC as a whole. It's not financial aid and student services and academics. So I think my background in teaching, too, has given me a nice, healthy respect for faculty roles. And, you know, when someone comes to me and says, well, they leave at 3 every day, I'm like, yeah, and they're probably grading until midnight. So let's just not go there and move on. So, other questions? I was also in charge of the Relay for Life team for a while. Then we had a faculty member that wanted to be in charge, and hey, great, whatever. And we worked all together and stuff. In the couple years that, when I took over, it was a little different. And remember, I come from a marketing background, so I kind of saw it as a way to promote the college as well as raise some money for Relay for Life. And again, there are some groups on campus that were never involved in programs and stuff like that. Our art department was one, and so I went and approached the art instructor and said, hey, can we come throw some clay over there and make some ugly bowls for a fundraiser? And he said, you bet. So we got faculty and staff and even some students to go over and made a mess in the art department and made some really ugly bowls and got them all fired and painted and everything. And then we had a fundraiser where you could buy the bowl, and then it was a soup tasting. It was a huge fundraiser for us, but it was great because the students were involved with a mix of faculty and staff, and it provided the art department an opportunity to be involved in a community service project that they had never, I guess, maybe thought of or tried to do. So I'm pretty persuasive. A lot of things. I think your technology rating was very exciting for me. I think I've learned today that there might be some things that can be improved in that area too, but you have the technology and you have resources. I was excited to see the counseling services. I like the way that you've got a student conduct person that knows what they're doing and has some of that background. I like your center where they come in and they've got the different services in that area. I think that's important that we don't run students around or try and minimize how much we can run them around. And when you say student services, I apologize because I'm coming from my student services perspective, so there's probably some things in my background that is not in your student services. Your athletics has excellent academic success, and that's huge because they are not just athletes, they're student athletes. And I love the model where you've got multiple advisors and your athletic, who is it? Yeah, athletic trainer helps with some of the advising and meets with those students one-on-one every week. I mean, that's great. You know, again, it goes back to your facilities. Sometimes it's the little things that can undermine stuff. Your facilities are up to par and great. You know, we have really old men's housing, and you can't believe that it doesn't matter if it's really a big deal, but it can really drag down some student success if the facilities are not up to par. I'm drawing a blank on this. Scholarships are big. The programs you offer. Why? Well, I'm from the area, so my family lives in Eaton, Colorado, and I grew up in this area. Somebody asked me this morning if I was a cowgirl, and I hate to admit, I did Little Britches Rodeo when I was little. It's a goat tire. So I like that you know, Western heritage, that kind of thing. I kind of feel like Wyoming has a lot. One of the things that kind of bothers me about Coffeyville, besides the humidity, They have a lot of trees and you can't see out. So it gets really, I'm a little claustrophobic when you don't have, when you have too many trees. And so you have the plains. I grew up in western Kansas where there's, big plains and, rolling fields of grass and wheat and that kind of thing. And so you have that, but then, I spent half of my time hiking and camping in the mountains, and you have that too. I like the western background, kind of the old west kind of deal. It has a lot of what Colorado has, but better. Yes, yes. It's not. It doesn't have all the. What do you call that? Yes, that too. Yeah. I hate to say that I don't like people if I'm going to this job. Population shift, right? And I don't think I've met anyone from Wyoming that I didn't like, so it must be a tribute to the way that you're raised and live in the state. So. And I'm used to the wind. I grew up in western Kansas, so that doesn't bother me. Yes, it is.
Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, let me consult my list. And I don't know who can answer this, but does the college have a policy or a program for professional development? Is that something that's promoted, used? It's one thing to say we encourage it, it's another to say whether or not people actually use it. And I'm talking about, I saw that you offer the tuition reimbursement for people going on for more education, but I'm talking more along the lines of professional organizations and attending conferences and things like that. Anybody want to answer that? Okay. What are you looking for in your next Vice President of Student Services? What's the thing that you want besides longevity? Stability, I've heard that. I think I'll pass the mental health exam. We're good there.
Somebody that can help our college before we start to move president and work with our board and help bring our campus together.
Jill, as a member of the board, and there's two other of us here, but Jill's a new president, and we are committed to his success. And so even though it's not our choice, the VP of Student Services is not our choice, what I would like to see is somebody who can really support Joe and his vision and his leadership style and what he sees in college, and will really work well with him and complement his style.
Okay. Good. What do you think are the challenges in student services that need to be addressed in the first 6 months, year, advising? Okay. What?
Organization. Work.
Okay.
Healing.
Okay.
The allocation.
Student what?
Student fee allocation.
Let me explain that.
Student fees that were so much set aside and then it's allocated out to clubs, criteria, and coaches. That needs to be totally reevaluated. And I'll work on that here a little bit. Can I follow up on that a little bit? I think one thing that from student services that I'm looking for is that since we have had, this will be the 6th VP in 5 years, that we can get some things completed that we've been working on, and we've had a lot of turnover, so we haven't completed a lot of those things. And student fee allocation, that's one of those.
Okay.
To really look at right off the bat.
Okay.
And I follow up on mine and say that the advising system is one of those that we've been working on for like 5 years. It would just be nice to have someone who can oversee finalizing exactly like how we can do it better.
Okay. Great.
So stability would address all of those issues.
Do you offer any flex scheduling? I mean, you offer online, but is it still in a semester-based? Okay, so no 4-week, 8-week interim class type things, anybody know? Okay. Here's a good question for you. What's the community's perception of LCCC? Is it, they like it, lots of support? Great.
Foundation, so she recognizes almost there is great support overall. There's a reason why we've grown to be the largest college foundation. The other issue is, there's always people who have people call this great white elephant. That I'm sure they call it coffee or something similar.
Oh, yeah.
There's always those, but overall, people appreciate this college. And I don't know if we could do the Laramie County scholarship because over half our students are from
Laramie County.
We look at the breakdown as to where the students come from.
Mhm.
They're coming from home,
Right.
that's why our norms have weighted this, because there are local students who live there as well.
It's kind of generated another idea. I think I might have said this too. I'm very goal oriented. Whether it's the strategic plan or fitting into the mission of the college or something that we come up with specifically in student services kind of thing. I like to plan, I like to set goals, but I'm also a list maker who likes to mark off things. So I've got, big time, if we're going to set a goal, it's going to get done. And if that means some extra hours for me or whatever, it'll happen. And if that means we have to tweak some things along the way to make sure that we've, got everyone involved that we need to, then I like to see things get done. So I grew up on a farm, and my brother and I were talking the other day about how everyone should have to work for my dad one summer out of their life, because then the work ethic might improve a little in some of our friends and students. But I do like to work hard. If I'm not working hard and have a lot of things going on, then I get tired and bored really fast. So I have a lot of energy and like to go and like to do a lot of things. And I think that you can find ideas in a lot of different places, whether it's in a lunch meeting in Rotary or walking across campus and talking to a maintenance staff member who says, hey, this problem's been going on for 10 years. Really? Can we work on that? Or your staff, or if it comes from your president, whatever. I think everyone can contribute to making it a better environment, and I think that should be celebrated. So.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hopefully at Laramie County Community College. I like student services. I like the diversity of student services. I know that my degree points me in the direction of a presidency, and it's not off the radar, but not for a while. I'm not ready. I think I've got a lot to learn. I know a big chunk of student services really well, and I'm really learning fast on the rest of it, and I'd like to stay in student services in a community college for sure. I don't want to leave the community college setting by any means. I'm committed to helping those students and others. So yeah, I'd like to be here and in student services. So I love it when I run across someone who's retirement age and they're like, I'm too old to go back to school. And it's like, no, you're not. Never too old to go back. One of the things I really like about LCCC too is the number of classes you offer to the community. I mean, just continuing education, obvious commitment to lifelong learning, that kind of thing. That was very exciting to see. Somebody asked me earlier what made me want to move here, and I think that's a really great idea. And then this morning when someone said they had Maxient for student conduct, yes, makes me even more excited. So that's a great program and a great resource to help students. So. Anything else? Are you keeping us on task? All right. Okay. Thank you very much for having me.